cloud because I have no idea what I'm doing. So, hey everyone, if you're new to this channel, welcome. That's pretty baller. My name's Kaylin. I am a sales strategist and a sales expert. I have written sales scripts and styles and processes in now 110 industries. Sometimes it is with salespeople and traditional sales teams, and others it's just like weird niche businesses. So, this is the first live of an upcoming show I am recording called Pitch Slapped, where I will be chatting a ton with entrepreneurs in niche style businesses to not only learn about how they made their first couple of million, but how they replicated that success and in turn, how you can do it the exact same. So, with that, I decided I would attempt to go live. I've never done this. I have no idea if it's even working. And if anybody tunes in, just feel free to interrupt me and ask any question relating to recruiting salespeople, teaching them what to say, or how to say it in a way that doesn't come off as pushy, sleazy, spammy, or scammy. So let's kick it off. There's a couple of really interesting things in sales. And sales right now, get this, it is the second most hated profession in North America. Second most hated profession. Who is hated more than salespeople? Think about it. If you have any ideas, put it in the comments and I will give an answer if it is correct or not. So, sales being the second most hated profession in North America, there's a couple of things we can take from that. And really, that's what the top negotiators know. So, I'm going to attempt to open up the whiteboard in Zoom, make sure I'm doing this right, and I'm going to walk you through the three things that top negotiators know how to do better than anybody else. Not only does it explode their sales, but it also has a way of not only gaining them trust and referrals, but it becomes a lot more fun in the process. So go ahead, if you're joining me now, ask all the sales related questions you have. I'm just coming up here just to share what I know in the 20 years that I've been doing this. And I will tell you, I thought in my career that I would only be in sales for a couple of years and then I would find something more stable. Anybody else ever been in that trap? But the reality is once you get the sales bug, you never lose it. And for me, I think if I could go back in time or give any advice to somebody just starting in their career or they're on the fence, do I want a sales career or not? The answer is yes. Because sales isn't just about sales, sales is a life skill. Throughout all phases of our life, we are constantly trying to persuade and negotiate with other people, whether it's for an idea. One lady once told me she had to negotiate with her husband for a divorce. Bless your soul. There was another lady who said she had to negotiate with a college admissions in order to get her son in because they didn't hit the minimum qualifications. And it's like, well, first of all, teach your son how to sell, and maybe you won't have to babysit him the rest of his life. But also, if I go back and I look in my career at all the mistakes I've made, and Lord knows there have been plenty, putting myself out there and not overanalyzing things and just going with it. You see, if you think about that Michael Jackson song, Billie Jean, where it was like, doon, 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 and then every step he took, the light under his feet would light up. Go look at the music video, it's great. But when you think about sales, that's what it's like. It's the Billie Jeanism. So every time you take a step and you take a risk and you try for something, I figured out how to do it. Every time you take a step and you take a risk and you figure out how to do it, the path starts to appear. And so today, best of the best things I've learned until probably I'm going to go for 57 minutes. That was my goal, regardless if anyone tunes in. So let's kick it off. Let me try to whiteboard for y'all. And I'm going to show you the things that top producers do that the rest of us just wish we could figure out. And it's surprisingly simple. The great thing about sales, people always say, hey, is sales a art or a science? Well, if you're doing it right, it's both. The science is mapping the process and the systems and processes behind what makes a great negotiator great. The art is the nuance, because once you have the process, everything else falls into alignment. So check this out. I am going to, ooh, that is very fancy. Well done, Zoom. All right. I want to make sure it's big enough that y'all can see it. So 36, there we go. So let's bold it. Ooh, text color. We get color today. That is magnificent. Technology is great. So, okay. Let's do caps for y'all. Things top negotiators know how to do. And once we master this, then we can actually get into the real fun behind becoming a great salesperson. So many people think, oh, I got to adjust the tonality. I got to know how to handle objections. You don't. That's what losers say. What you have to do is understand the premise for what makes somebody great in this industry, and then you can play with that premise. So check it out. Top negotiators have a couple of really great skills with them. So one, two, three. We're going to share three of them. The first thing that they know how to do is lower bias. Let's talk about this for a minute. Let me go back to my face. Oh, this is funny. How do I go back to my face? Nope. Okay. Well, I don't know if I can go back to my face, y'all. Let's see here. Ah, this is great. Follow my view, owner, share. Anybody know? Close whiteboard. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yay, we did it. I'm back. Hello. God, this is the worst YouTube ever. You're welcome. Okay, so top negotiators know how to lower bias. If we think of it, throughout all of human history, there have always been salespeople. Did you know in the 1800s, actually, town squares were organized around all of the people would come for their marketplace and they would sell their goods and services in the middle of this town square. And one of the products that was always sold was soap, right? So these merchant ships would come in with these giant soap boxes. And back then, soap boxes weren't these flimsy little pieces of cardboard. They were legit boxes. Sometimes they could be 2 to 3 feet tall. And they were just lined with all the great soaps. And so in the middle of these town squares, there were two types of people that would empty the soap boxes. They'd buy up all the soap, they'd sell it or give it away to whoever was coming into that town square, and then they would flip that soap box and stand on top of it. And the two people that did this were politicians and preachers. And regardless of what you think of either one, their strategy is genius. You see, if everybody in the town square is around 5'7" to 6 foot tall, and they had 3 extra feet, now they were the focal point of that town square, which meant that their message could be amplified. So politicians stood on their soapbox to convey their message. Also, so did the pastors of that area, so that way they could bring more exposure to the church. So that's where the concept standing on your soapbox actually came from. Now, how does this relate to lowering bias? Well, fast forward all the way to where we are now, and you will find a couple of interesting truths. Number one, I mentioned earlier, sales is the second most hated profession in North America today. Remember to put in the comments what you think number one is. And the reason I'm saying this is because sales has such a negative connotation that for the most part, if you're in sales, you're viewed as an unwelcome pest. And so the question, how does a great negotiator How does a great negotiator leverage that information? Well, it's surprisingly simple. They're masters at lowering bias of other people, not necessarily manipulation. Don't think manipulation is negative. We all are trying to manipulate things throughout the day. If we have a child and we're trying to get them to eat vegetables, that in itself is a form of manipulation. Manipulation is just communicating in a way to get the desired outcome, ideally for the benefit of the group at whole. And so when we go back to lowering bias in a sales cycle, there's a couple of things great negotiators do. They recognize that the higher someone's emotion tends to be, the lower that logic tends to be associated with it. So think in your own lives. You probably dated somebody at some point and you might have loved this person. It could even be a current spouse. But every now and again, that spouse says something that just pisses you off. And in that moment, when you're in a heightened state and you're very frustrated with this person who you ideally love, your brain starts not thinking of all the reasons you love them. No, that'd be great. Your brain instead starts thinking of all the things they've ever done wrong, doesn't it not? It's not that this beautiful schnookums is the love of your life. It's that they chewed food weird last Tuesday and you can't take it anymore. So in sales, in a negotiation, in a persuasion, we need to be consciously aware of when we are triggering that bias in someone else. Because if we start triggering something mentally in them, they won't be thinking about everything you're saying. They'll start thinking about the last salesperson that did them dirty and how they will not do business with you. And once that happens, ghost rates shoot up through the roof. And there's a few things we do to accidentally trigger bias in someone else. So let me explain a couple of them. Number one, the mindset we have when we approach a conversation. Most sales trainers will tell you to be enthusiastic and excited. And if you're a female, you should smile and make eye contact and nod. Give me a break. That's not how business is done. As a female, if we're smiling and looking overly enthusiastic and trying to help them, we come off as insecure or, dare I say, flirtatious. The real victors in a sales and selling process know how to have an attitude of curiosity where their goal is just to ask the most amount of questions. They also know how to adjust their tonality with who they're speaking with. It's called the mirror effect. So if you notice your prospect is saying something in a certain tonality, maybe they've slowed their speech, maybe they start asking a lot of questions about details, then you need to do the same. And that helps lower the bias. Now, there's a couple other things you can do to lower bias. One of my favorites is adding humor. Throughout every sales conversation, there's certain inherently funny things. And so if you are able to take an improv class or just follow this channel more, I'll give little bits and tips and tricks on how you can infuse humor into your everyday conversations. Because humor is not only a powerful tool, but humor helps lower that bias. And the lower the bias, the more receptive somebody is to having a conversation with you. The other thing you can do to lower bias that great salespeople do. Let me go back to the whiteboard and actually write all this out for you. That would be a good idea. Good job, Caitlin. Okay, so lower bias. Now, how do you lower the bias? Couple of things. Curiosity is a mindset. The other thing you can do, now why is this bullet? There we go, everyone. And then the crowd says, hallelujah. And I say crowd lovingly because there's no one watching, which is great because one day there's going to be a lot of people watching. Side note for all my entrepreneurs out there, I don't care if you're good at your craft yet. Get out there and share what you do know. The people will find you. If you overanalyze everything and you never start, you're back to that Billie Jean video. Okay, so how do we lower bias? Well, we remember to be curious. We infuse humor. Humor should be coming up at any inflection point, by the way. So once we notice that maybe somebody's a little triggered or they're biased, that's a great time to add humor. The other thing we use is stop, for the love of all things holy. Stop using adjectives. Wow, let me go on a little rant about this one for a hot minute. Let's do close whiteboard. Oh my gosh, round 2, nailed it. Okay, so adjectives. Let's talk about this. If we know that salespeople are hated, there's a couple of things that salespeople accidentally do. I think it's bad training from the 90s, obviously, but there's a couple of things that great salespeople do that really sets them up for failure. And it's using adjectives like good, better, best, quality, integrity. So if it sounds like a core value initially, you're going to come off as a salesperson. Oh, we're the best in the industry. No, you're not. You're just trying to sell me something. So the next time you even answer a call, just answer the next spam call that comes in and listen to what they're saying, and then map how many adjectives they use. If they're using adjectives consistently in that sales call, hang up because you know you're just trying to be sold. Great salespeople and negotiators don't use that many adjectives. They ask questions and then they just pinpoint solutions. Sales isn't that complicated. In fact, it's probably one of the easiest crafts. Now, do you have to practice it? Yeah, duh. You have to practice everything. But once you're aware of these certain patterns, it just happens naturally. Which reminds me, fourth thing you can do to lower bias, going back to our handy dandy little whiteboard up here. Fourth thing we can do to lower bias, avoid the word just, unless we are minimizing. Okay, so what do I mean by this? When we start off a call, let's just say it's a cold call, and we say, hey, we are just reaching out because of, you've already triggered their bias. Don't use the word just. Other examples where people use just a lot, just checking in, just following up, just circling this to the top of your inbox, just wanted to take a couple of moments of your time. Stop. When you use the word just, psychologically, you are saying, hey, listen, I'm not going to add a lot of value to this, and that's okay because I'm just going to waste your time. Unless you're trying to minimize, knock that word off. So an example of a minimization with the word just is, hey, I just happened to have 5 minutes before my next meeting, and I recently saw an article where you stated XYZ. I'm reaching out if in the event it even makes sense to talk about some of the things specifically I saw in that article that propelled me to reach out to you. Do you mind if I send you an email with more details on it? And then if you want to respond to it on your own time, you can? P.S. That's how you do a cold call. And that's how, when you know that script, you can do it 150 times a day. Better yet, in some cities, you can actually create something called ringless voicemail. Everyone say, "Ooh, God, this show's great." I hope you're having fun. But with ringless voicemail, you can send that exact message out to thousands of people at scale. And then they respond with their email. Brilliant. In the world of AI, you gotta be smart. You can't be trying to figure out the tricks from the 90s. Like, just think about if you wouldn't be buying it in today's situation, you don't even need a salesperson. All a salesperson does is they help somebody make a decision, and that's it. And where most companies go wrong is they think there's a billion decisions you can help that customer make. There's not. There's like five tops. Let me show you in the whiteboard. My transitions started getting better, in case you're curious. My hair is not, though. I need to work on that. All right. The other thing, guys, I'm so proud of this. Wow, that's phenomenal. The other thing, let's get rid of some of this to stop confusing everybody. The other thing a top negotiator does is they help a prospect make a decision. Now, a couple of things with that. In sales, we are so used to talking about why our stuff is better than somebody else that we forget that, the reality is if they knew how to make a decision, they don't need you. They don't. They don't care. Think about it. Let me give an example. When I go to Amazon, which might be too frequently, when I go to Amazon, I'm not going there to talk to somebody. I know about what I'm going to order because I've ordered it 100 times before. I trust my brand. I don't need a salesperson to talk me through some new details. But if I have a new problem, and I can't decide if I should switch away from my existing brand or not, that's when I need a salesperson, and ideally one who communicates fast. So when you listen to traditional sales trainers and you listen to all of these wonderful things and teachings that they have, what they forget is they are teaching you how to sell against a competitor. But that's not the only decision at factor. In fact, there's 5 decisions that a buyer is going through at any point unconsciously. And the better we understand this unconsciously, the better it comes out in our communication. So let's go back, check it out. Here's the 5 decisions. The 5 decisions that a buyer is going through at any given point, if they even want to talk to a salesperson, is the buyer could decide to buy from you as the salesperson, ideally. They could decide to buy from a competitor of yours. What are the other things they could do? They could also decide to do it themselves. They don't have to actually hire anybody. Good example of this in the recruiting industry. A lot of recruiters, they shoot themselves in the foot because they think, oh, the only option is them versus Robert Half or whatever the competing organization is. It's not. They could totally decide to recruit internally. They could also put off the decision, meaning there might be certain things that need to fall into place before somebody decides. And then last but not least, it's a tricky one. Very few people ever get this question right in my seminars. I do, like I said, I believe this year I'm slated for 113 in-person sales workshops. What? And the referral side is fascinating. So if we stack these two together, okay? So number one, we've got to lower the bias of whoever we're speaking with. Number two, we have to actually help a prospect make a decision. And the thing is, if we do a bad job at lowering bias, then they won't send a referral. If we trigger the fact we're just like every other salesperson, even if they don't buy, or let me reword that. Even if they don't buy from us, if we don't trigger that bias in them, they will still send us a referral. An example of this is real estate. If you've ever been privileged enough to buy your first house or get to do a walkthrough, sometimes you'll meet a great real estate agent who cares and they take the time to figure out what you're looking for, but for some reason or another, you just don't buy from them. That doesn't mean anything's wrong. You'll still send them a referral because you know they're excellent. One of the top qualities of people who get the most referrals, it's not what you think. The people who get the most referrals, it's because they're technical in nature. So think wealth managers, think CPAs, think construction firms. If you're detailed and technical in nature, you probably get more referrals than everybody else on your team. Isn't that kind of a fun little trick? So far, we've covered the two top things that negotiators know how to do better than anybody else in the sales cycle. So what's the third? Well, the third one is very unassuming. And in fact, top negotiators love it as leverage, but they hate other people figuring it out. And the reason they hate other people figuring it out is because, well, unfortunately, the more people who know this trick, the more competition they have. And top producers in general don't enjoy having more competition. So let me move this to the side. Wow, that is amazing. Gosh, technology, man, it's a vibe. Okay. I'm so proud of this whiteboard. The other thing, or the last thing, I guess, that top negotiators know how to do is they leverage the framework. More on that in just a second. Let me bold that, and then we'll get into the meat. So what do I mean by leverage the framework? Approximately once a week in my seminars, people will come and they will ask me, usually it's executives. I speak on behalf of an organization called Vistage International. I've spoken to, gosh, 50 associations at this point. I've also spoken a ton in EO, YPO, and I've coached companies in 110 industries as far as it relates to recruiting salespeople, teaching them exactly what to say and how to say it in a way that isn't pushy, sleazy, spammy, or scammy. And top negotiators, it doesn't matter if it's a B2B business, if it's a B2C business, if it's an entrepreneur system, if it's a one-to-one or a one-to-many, or if it's enterprise, or maybe they're even multi-threading in their enterprise solutions. Doesn't matter if it's a SaaS company, a pet grooming company, it does not matter what the heck we're selling. Top negotiators have a playbook. Now, I don't necessarily mean a 100-page cumbersome guide that you create, you spend 60 grand on it, and then you leave it on your computer and you never look at. But I mean up here in their brains, at least initially, top producers memorize what the other top producers did. And you can actually map sales. So in my workshops, as I was mentioning, people always say, well, is sales an art or a science? It's actually freakishly science. The art comes from when you memorize your playbook. And if playbook is too much of a word for you, just think script. A script is a good part of a playbook. However, top producers know what is being said in every part of the sales cycle. And hint, there's like 6 steps in a sales cycle. Some organizations, if you're a very complicated subject, you might have 7 or 8. But for the majority of the companies I've consulted for, they all wind up having about the same 6 steps. You do a little prep for the meeting. I call it the initiate and prepare. And then you make a connection, and then you ask about their problems and dreams, and then you give a little bit of advice, not always advice to go with you, but just advice that can help them in their situation. And then they'll bring up concerns and considerations. There's like 5 tops. Let me know if you guys like this, if I should create another video on that. And then the last but not least is they do something called transition to a close. And old school tactics will tell you, oh, but you need to have you need to have a hard close. Always be closing. Ask for the sale. If you don't ask, you don't get. All bullshit. In fact, now more than ever, the more you ask, the lower your closing percentages get because people hate that pressure. The second you ask for the sale, you're actually increasing that bias. We already talked about bias, for goodness sakes. So, okay, so freedom within the framework. What do I mean by this? I mean, a top sales manager should map out their sales process. What is happening at every stage? And ideally, what should you say at every stage? And a top negotiator will memorize that framework and then start to play with freedom within it. Because the problem most salespeople get themselves into, get this, isn't necessarily not knowing what to say next, but it's not having a personality as they're saying it because they become robotic and rigid. So the last thing that top negotiators do is we go back to our little whiteboard. Look at this transition. Bam, baby. As we go back to the whiteboard, it's they know how to map out their sales process with a buyer. They know exactly what to say. That's so cool. And then they add their own personality and nuance to it. I don't know how to unbolt. Ooh, everyone, wow, that's just sexy. I don't care what anyone says. Technology is great. So, all right, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this part of the sales training today. Every time I'm home, I'm going to try to go live more and more. We'll splice it up into short form video content. And we've got our new show dropping any day now. We're still in the middle of making the pilot. It's called Pitch Slapped. So excited for that. So stay on the lookout for Pitch Slap coming soon. If you've got questions, anything relating to recruiting salespeople, teaching them what to say or how to say it in a way that is not pushy, sleazy, spammy, scammy, I got your back. Put it all in the comments. So excited and grateful for everyone and anyone who has tuned in. And one more teeny tiny itty bitty detail. Should you want 52 words and phrases that lower the bias of whoever you're chatting with, either put it in the comments or click the link and sign up for the newsletter. It's called Chess, Not Checkers, soon to be rebranded to Pitch Slapped because duh. I look forward to helping you because at the end of the day, sales gives you freedom. Sales gives you power. Sales helps you make a bigger impact in your community. And the more we know how to sell and persuade and help others, the higher quality of life we all experience. So with that, I'm Kaylin. Thank you for tuning in today. You guys are amazing, amazing, amazing. I'm so blessed. Sign up. Got you. Now, how do I end YouTube Live?